Hello and welcome once again in this channel JNS Basic Zoology. So we are going to discuss about the artery system of the garden lizard, that is called as calotes. Let's start. So the artery system of the calotes having two main branches or two main arches, that is called as pulmonary arch and systemic arch. Totally, they are having three aortic arches, that is one pulmonary and two systemic arches. So the pulmonary arch, this pulmonary arch arises from right side of ventricle. Pulmonary arch or pulmonary aorta having the connection with the right side of ventricle, so there must be having impure blood. So this pulmonary arch or pulmonary aorta can supply the blood to the lungs which is impure or deoxygenated, and that deoxygenated blood is then purified in the lungs. So with the help of the pulmonary aorta or pulmonary arch, the impure blood or deoxygenated blood drain towards the lungs for the purification. After its emergence, this pulmonary arch soon divides into two pulmonary arteries. That is, this pulmonary arch or pulmonary arch gives two branches, bifurcates into two branches. One goes towards the right side, another goes towards the left side, that forming right and left pulmonary arch and carries deoxygenated blood towards the lungs. Again, there is having a main branch that is called as systemic arch. The systemic arches arises in that the right systemic arch arises from left side of ventricle. Right systemic arch arises from left side of ventricle and carries pure blood, while the left systemic arch arises from right side of the ventricle and carries mixed blood. Because in case of calotes, in case of reptiles, there is a three-chambered heart. So the mixing of blood, pure and impure blood, is mixed. Some blood is mixed in the ventricle. So here the mixed blood is carried on with the help of left systemic arch, and the right systemic arch carries the purest blood. So here I have two branches. So this right and left systemic arches, right and left systemic arches are then goes to respective right and left side and again comes together and unite together, that is unite by curving around the esophagus, and again they unite posteriorly and forming a aorta, and that aorta is called as dorsal aorta. That is right systemic arch and left systemic arch. These two branches are again unite in the posterior side and forming aorta. That aorta is called as the dorsal aorta. That aorta is called as the dorsal aorta. Again, one of the branch which arises from the right side of this aorta, and that is called as innominate artery. Innominate or also called as common carotid artery. This innominate or common carotid artery is arises from right systemic arch, and in front of forming a short artery that is called a denominate or common artery. It soon then bifurcates into right and left branches that is called as right and left carotid arteries. Innominate or common carotid artery which arises from the right systemic arch and goes towards the anterior side, then again divided into bifurcated right and left branches that is called as right and left carotid arteries, which runs parallel to the systemic arch of that side. Again, these carotid arteries, right and left carotid arteries, again bifurcates, again further divided into internal and external carotids. That is, first of all, there is having innominate artery, innominate or common carotid artery. This innominate or common carotid artery when goes towards the right towards the anterior side, forming two branches, right and left carotid arteries, and then there's right and left carotid arteries again divided into internal and external carotid arteries. So this is a external branch of internal branch of carotid artery, and this one is the external carotid artery. Again, he is having external carotid artery and internal carotid arteries, and all that branches supply blood to head region. All carotid arteries supply blood to the head region, and again there is having a connection which connects the internal carotid to the systemic arch. Systemic arch and internal carotid artery can be connected with the help of a small branch of artery that is called as ductus caroticus. The ductus caroticus is a connection between the systemic arch and internal carotid. Again, there are having some branches. That is one of the branch which is called as subclavian. This subclavian arises from the right systemic arch. That is called as common subclavian arising from right systems. Again divided into right and left branches and supply blood to four limbs. So subclavian arteries supply blood to the four limbs. Again there is having some branches like vertebral. This vertebral is again arises from the right systemic aorta, which is single, and this can supply blood to vertebral column, so having the name vertebral. Then some branches which is called like esophageal. This esophageal, out of that esophageal, three of them arises from right systemic and four from left systemic and supply blood to esophagus. So these are some branches, main branches. So again having some branches of the dorsal aorta. So we know that the right systemic and left systemic, these two are connected and forming a mid-dorsal aorta, and that mid-dorsal aorta is called as dorsal aorta. This dorsal aorta running straight backward mid-dorsally and gives the many branches. That is one of the branch which is called as partial. These partials having several pairs throughout the dorsal muscles and vertebral column. Then secondary there is having anterior esophageal, can supply blood to esophagus, so having name esophageal. Again gastric, this gastrics having 4 to 8 pairs and supply blood to stomach. Then having anterior mesenteric, this anterior mesenteric forming from the right side of the aorta, supply blood to the intestine, the small intestine particularly. Then coeloic or coeloic, the coeloic is supply blood to stomach, pancreas and spleen. That is, can also have the connection with the digestive system. Then about the posterior mesenteric branch, is posterior mesentery, supply blood to the rectum. Then having genital, the genital having a pair, supply blood to testes or ovary. In case of male, supply blood to testes. In case of female, supply blood to the ovaries. That is pure blood supplied to testes and ovaries by the genital. Renal, by the name we can understand, which is having the connection with the kidneys. So renal, there are three or more pairs of renal and supply blood to the kidneys. Then about the iliac, common iliac, they are having one pair of this iliac divided into many branches, that is external iliac, internal iliac, common iliac forming some branches, that is internal iliac, external iliac, and supply blood to hind limbs, supply blood to the legs. And lastly, there is a branch that is called as caudal. Dorsal aorta goes posteriorly into the tail region and supply blood to the tail region. That is caudal can supply blood to the tail region. So these are some branches arises from the dorsal aorta. And this is all about the artery system of the calotes. So if you like this video, then subscribe the channel and share with your friends. So thank you once again for watching this video.